we have Anne, Bronwyn, and Carl. They're running this race. They're running at different speeds, but these speeds are constant for each person. And we want to work out the length of the race. So when Anne finishes, she's run the full length of the race. Bronwyn has still got 15 meters left to run, so he's run x minus 15, and Carl has run x minus 35. So that's a bit of information we can put down. And then when Bronwyn is finished, well, Carl has 22 meters left to run. So that means in the time that it takes Bronwyn to run the 15 meters to finish, Carl, well, he's got 22 left to run, so that means he's run 13, because it's 35, the distance that he had left, minus the distance that Bronwyn has then run. Okay, so that's a bit tricky, I think, but this is the basis for solving this question. Now we can actually create an equation from this, and I want to explain why. Let's look at a simpler example where somebody runs 20 meters for a period of time, and then they run 10 meters. Now they've obviously taken twice as long to run this 20 as the 10, and we could kind of work out how much longer by dividing them. Now let's say somebody else has run 16 meters, and we want to know how much they've run in this time period. Well, because the time period is twice as much, we can see then it's twice as much for the second person as well. And so this is going to be 16 over question mark. And we can solve this equation. In this case, it's just going to be 2 is 16 divided by something, and the something is going to be 8. Now, I've done that because we can basically argue this in the same way. It must be that x minus 15 over 15, that's going to be kind of the how much longer it was to run the first period and the second period. That must equal x minus 35 divided by 13, how much longer it took to run the first period here and the second period. They've got to be equal to one another. So I've created a fractional equation. Before I solve this equation, I just want to explain how you could get a slightly different equation. It's actually equivalent through a different thought process. So let's say we've still got our 20 and our 10 and our 16 and our question mark. Well, another approach would think about the fact that they are running at constant speeds, and so the proportion, the ratio between their distances would also be equal. So if this person runs 20 while this person runs 16, then they run this much more, basically. So I'm now referring to it in terms of distance instead of time. And then when I get the 10, well, it's going to be the same ratio, essentially, so I can create this equation. We actually get the same answer. It's just, in this case, I think it's actually a little bit harder to solve. But if we apply that to our scenario, then we would get x minus 35 over x minus 15, or the other way around. But now it needs to be consistent, equals 13 over 15. So that's actually how the answers do it. They argue it that way. I personally went with this way because it just looks a bit nicer, to be honest, rather than this divided by this. This is like more of a standard kind of fractional equation. You just times both sides by 15 and both by 13. But it's up to you really, and seeing both is quite beneficial. Ultimately, this all comes down to the fact that these are essentially a ratio. You could write it as this to this equals this to this. Actually, I'm not going to get into any more detail on that, but this is essentially a ratio problem. All right, let's go back to this one here and let's solve it. So just going to copy and paste it. Right, so cross multiply like I said before, 13 times x minus 15 is equal to 15 times x minus 35. Probably best to just multiply these out. Maybe I won't. Maybe I can avoid it. 13x minus 13 times 15 is going to equal 15x minus 15 times 35. Now we can rearrange this. So I can minus 13x and I can add the 15 times 35. So I'm actually going to get 15 times 35 minus, hold on, let me change it around. 35 times 15 minus 13 times 15 is equal to 2x. And 35 lots of 15 minus 13 lots of 15 is just going to be 22 lots of 15. And I can divide through by 2, which just means x is 11 times 15. So using this approach, I've avoided having to do any of these multiplications. Of course, if you prefer to do the multiplications, you're not quite happy with my work in here, that's absolutely fine. You should still get to this step. And 11 times 15 is just going to be 150 plus 15. So our answer is 165. Well done.